All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So we haven't had an agronomy seminar in quite some time. We wanted to come back and start doing these again. We wanted to start with our recently promoted faculty members. So the tenure and promotion process is a very long, tough process. It's a lot of stress, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of victory and a lot of excitement. So I wanted to take this opportunity for Marcelo to go through his program. He has built a nationally recognized, internationally recognized program in just a very short amount of time. So I wanted him to present to us so that the faculty, so we can really understand what he's been doing, the successes he's had. But I also wanted it to go to students and other folks that are in the department, so you can also see the type of work he's been doing, the philosophies that he has, the successes that he's had, and just take this opportunity to enjoy this victory lap with him. So that's what we're trying to do today. So Marcelo, thank you for putting this together for us.
Yeah, appreciate. Okay. So just to confirm, people in Zoom can hear you, can hear as well?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks everyone for being here today in Zoom land. I hope all my students are on Zoom land because I don't see many of them here. So Jay came up with this idea of talking a little bit about tenure, and I have thought a lot about this route to tenure and what it meant for me, the path that we took. And actually that was not natural. That was instigated by my mentor and colleague, Dr. Sollenberger, that emailed me right after that letter came and said, take the moment to think about this and what you went through, what this means, what are the next steps. Was a lot going through, a lot this year, and the next steps are still blurry, but I've been thinking about it. I want to talk about the heading up for tenure with extension, but actually it feels a little more like rolling up the hill for tenure with extension. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So what I was kind of, okay, what I'm going to present this. What I thought about was showing you a little bit of my job as an extension specialist, also recognizing that many of us don't have contact with extension on a daily basis. In the intersection between my research and extension program, how I made this connection from a mess that started to the point where I'm today. Some of my perspectives in terms of tenure, teamwork, and some challenges that I overcome and some of that I created through this process, and how and why I'm going to do this. What I have in mind here is people that are starting their professions as a new faculty with the extension appointment, or folks that are mentoring colleagues with extension appointment, or even those that are evaluating, hopefully, are listening to us, those are evaluating, to see a little bit more on the other hand, beyond that 100-page document that we submit. I have to start with disclaimers. As any good financial company, past performance is not guarantee of future results. And I say that because I want to be lazy now. I want to really slow down and stop because I got tenure, right? I can do that. You understand what I mean in a little bit. Also, the views that I present are personal. I do not represent institutional policy. Jay's already afraid of what I'm going to say, but don't worry, it's not bad. And the last one, enjoy this conversation. I want to make this a nice conversation. Learn from the mistakes. I'm proud of the mistakes. I own my mistakes, and I love sharing them because I think people can learn a lot from the mistakes. And don't do what I did or do at your own mental risk. It could be bad. I want to start with a question. What is extension? Most of us know the research and the teaching component, but few of us are involved with the extension component. So extension institutionally is the partnership between federal, state, and county government that provides scientific knowledge and expertise to the public. Okay, so we are responsible to develop this knowledge and also to make it available, because if it doesn't leave the university, what good are we doing? So our job in extension is grab this knowledge that's generated in here, not by my program, by everybody, by all my colleagues, and take it to the public through our county extension faculty. take it to the public through our events and everything. And so just as a matter of magnitude, we have about 600 people with extension and faculty with extension appointment. If I'm not mistaken, it's 400, almost 400 with in the county level, and then 200 and something at the state level with extension appointments. So there's a lot of us that have this extension factor. We're in all 67 counties and also at the Seminole tribe, and we have 12 research and education centers across the state, plus the research and education, units. And we have people working in agriculture, horticulture, natural resources, seed grant, family and consumer sciences, youth, and more. Whew, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of lists. There's a lot that we are doing, and we're part of this team, this IFAS team. Beyond IFAS, are actually the cooperative extension that involves also our colleagues from FAMU. Okay, a little bit about myself. I'm an extension specialist. That means my majority of my appointment is extension. My main target audience is working with those extension agents, support them, develop material training so they can then support their farmers, their other stakeholders, their commodity groups, their industry. I also work directly with the stakeholders, but my main mission is to help the extension agents. That's why I do a lot of applied stuff, applied research, on-farm research, variety testing, management, trial. So this is what is in my job description, extension specialist. But if you look into the list that we have for the top 5 universities, extension is not listed there. It's not on the 10-10-10 priorities or whatever other priority we're going to have in the future. So that's kind of frustrating, right? But I had to review my priorities if I want to stay in the game. As many of my colleagues said, especially in my mentoring committee, your job as an assistant professor is to get tenure. To get tenure, you need publications, you need funding, you need students, you need to do service, and then you can do what you want to do. But before that, you need to do all this publication. When I brought up this disparity between my letter, my formal job description, in the requirements for tenure to my mentoring committee, my dear colleague, Dr. Sullenberger, very politely said, Marcelo, nobody cares what you think. This is the game. You got to play it or you are out. Dr. Farrow is also in my committee, and I appreciate those thoughts. My first few years was a lot of dashboard hours trying to figure out my job in extension. I had some background in farm. I had background in farming. I had background in commercial agriculture, not as much in pure extension. So I had to learn what extension meant, how to do it. I also thought that I have to work with the farmers directly. Like, no, we have this structural work within it. I had to figure out my role. I had to get to know people, get to know my commodities, get to know my state. And I was also doing a lot of random stuff. Every single person that called me had a different emergency, had a different need that I must attend to. And I was doing that. 50-something farm visits in the first year, probably more than 40 county talks in the first 2 years. So I was all over the place. Until my mentoring committee said, hey, let's get your stuff together here. Otherwise, you're not going to get tenure. So my second phase in years 3 and 4, I realized that I need money to do my research. I realized that without that, I would not get tenure. I needed to organize my life, and especially in relation to extension, I need to make sense of what I was doing and find metrics, because extension is based on impact. If I cannot show my impact, it's basically I'm not doing anything. So I need to find those metrics and do that extension activity more purposefully, so that activity can count on towards my progress. Okay. So I started applying for a lot of grants. Extension became a little bit on the second plane here, which was very hard for me because I felt like I was betraying the people that start trusting me as a new extension specialist. I built those relationships and now I'm jeopardizing those. Fortunately, our extension agents are very good and they understand that and they support. They said, man, you need to get tenured. After that, we can work more. I started on year 2, started to apply for grants, didn't get them. You know, oh, you need to start applying for USDA grants. I remember emailing Dr. Wright, said, there is this $10 million grant that I think I'm thinking about applying. He gave me a call and said, Marcelo, Who do you think in the same mind would give $10 million to an assistant professor just starting? This is not for you. The overload, the administrative overload, this is way too big. Focus on commodity groups. Jay also told me that. Focus on small grants, focus on local things. So I started expanding my portfolio of grants. Didn't get any. So I started expanding even more opportunities. Well, in year 4, I got about four or five grants. Guess what? Now we need to do the job, right? Okay, I was here. At that same time, I also had my 3rd-year review. It was lovely. You are doing a great job, but you need more publication. The 6 per year you have on the record are not enough. Well, career-wise was not only for the time being here. So we only analyzed the publications in the time I was here. There were not that many and did not come out always from my group. You need to do more service. You need to have national recognition. You need to have an international work. You need to serve as associate editor for a journal, and you probably need to chair a session of your society. Well, I have German descent. I'm a German descent. So when you challenge your German, we're going to face it right away, right? So that's what I did. I say I was strategically overwhelming myself, but I need to do that to check the boxes with always with the next point in mind, which will come in a second. I felt it was never enough. Always more and more and more. So I got a lot of money. I decided to hire a lot of people. I had a lot of extra involvement in terms of services, associate editor for crop science, society work, and more. And things just start really to flow. Well, roll over me. And at that point, I could not stop. Now my point is, can I stop the train a little bit and slow down? It's very hard with all that was going on to come to this point where I can slow down. That's why I was trying to say I want to be lazy for the next few years, because in 2023, in January, when I was looking into activities that I was doing and my team was doing, this is what I came up with, the main activities and the main people. I had out between 7 and 12 people working for me at each time, between 2 technicians, interns, visiting scholars, and students. So 5-7 students, graduate students with 30% extension of 30% research appointment. So that's probably a little bit unwise, not to say stupid of my part, but it's because of those people that I'm here today. We'll talk more about that. So I want to talk, before we get to exactly some of highlights of the programs I work on, I want to talk a little bit about my general work, especially in extension, and how I did to achieve the tenure to achieve tenure promotion in this path, especially for those that think I'm never on my phone, I'm never in my office and always on a tractor, and I never respond my emails quickly, and I don't answer the phone, and it's not because I'm just playing around. I mean, I like to drive tractors, so I like that too, but it's not because of that. I work a lot with the extension agents, and many times, and this take a lot of time. We do trainings, or do one-on-one trainings. We do online trainings, and we have other styles of training like office hours. I'm always on the phone, according to Annie. She tries to call me any time of the day. I'm never picking up because I'm always on the phone. I do a lot of farm visits, and I like to find solutions together. I like to empower people to make their decisions. That's different from teaching them. That's different to transferring knowledge. Here's the knowledge. We're helping them making the decisions, the agents making the decisions, and then the farmers making the decisions. That's my philosophy in terms of extension. I love learning by doing, so I like to do there. And when I do things, it enhances my confidence in myself in doing things, and the confidence that my stakeholders, my agents, and my farmers have on me in getting stuff done. So we're always on the farm. Stephen might recognize this picture. Whoops, this picture here on the right of us planting with John Erickson, planting Bermuda grass and clever, actually. With Dr. Blunt planting a lot of the trials, or with the farmers in the field. I work a lot directly with farmers on a one-on-one setting, in a farm visit, or also in a classroom setting. Teaching farmers is fantastic. They always have very challenging questions. And they want to see if you really know to be able to teach them, because they've been doing that forever. And here comes this new guy, fresh out of school, foreign, to tell them what they have to do. So how to approach that is pretty interesting. And I also like working with the new farmers, because through the youth component of extension, I had the opportunity to work with 4-H, and that also helps building up capacity of the new generation. I love my job because I need to know a lot about a lot about everything. When you go on a farm, the production system, if you know only about soils and don't know about plants, it's not gonna work, because you have the plants, you have the animals, you have the pests and diseases. So you need to have a broad knowledge of all those things. And many times, the times I learn the most is when I'm riding with the farmers, driving cattle, riding on a pickup truck, understanding their needs, their perspectives, their thoughts about IFAS. I had to learn all that to be able to operate with our stakeholders. I wish I could do more of that. I don't do that as frequently. Because after all, we're in a people's job, okay? We work with people and we work for the people. And if we don't create and don't maintain those networks, if we don't care for the people we're working with and for, our jobs are meaningless, our work is meaningless. And it does not result in any impact. Changing gears a little bit, on extension specialists are also expected to have multi-state work, multi-state responsibility. The cool thing is that throughout the Southeast, basically all the extension specialists in forage and livestock, almost all, have been here only within the past 6-7 years. So it's a new crop of faculty with the support from several of the older faculty that are amazing in mentoring us and giving a lot of support. So extension can be very demanding. So that 70% is a lot, okay? It can be very demanding. There's a lot of dashboard time. There is a lot of traveling. There's working with multiple agents in multiple counties all across the state. It takes me 5 hours to get to Jay, Florida, where I have some research. It takes me 3.5 hours to get to Ona or Okeechobee, where we have projects. The demands are many and are changing depending on what the time of the year, depending on who you talk to. They're going to say, we need this. Sometimes you need that, and everyone has their own priority. So how to accommodate that is very hard to define what priorities are. And being a farmer myself, I love the farm visits, I love the one-on-one training with the recognition that is a very low efficient in terms of disseminating the information, but is the highest reward, the highest impact and return on investment when you go to those farms, visit the people, and they apply the knowledge that you are sharing with them and creating with them. It's just fantastic. Okay, I'm going to change gears and talk a little bit about my research, and then in a little more specific of what I do and how it integrates with the extension component. So many people ask, oh, you're only doing applied research, right? It's just proof of concept. And I kind of have a little grudge with that, because they think if you're not picking on Freddie, but if you're not doing molecular or not picking on Chris, if you're not doing ecology, that's not research. Well, variety trial is research. Management practice is research. There is a lot of important information we need there. It is applied. And I rely on my colleagues that have the basic expertise to guide me through some of this so we can prove those concepts in the field and take it to the farmer. So I do a lot of variety testing, management trials. I love the perspective of the system, integrated system, alternative system, how the different pieces, including the human component, interact in that system. And also crop management. Wait, I'm the forage specialist, right? Well, where forages grow, what forages used for, what uses forages, what raises forages, how can we use cover crop that are also forages, who is using forages, how we can integrate in the current systems, how we can convince people to use this technology, how we interact with the people that are using technology. So there's social sciences, there's economics, there is animal science, there's soils, there is plant science, and there is more involved in this. That's why a forage program can be very big. As Esteban knows, a forage breeding program. What do you do? A breed forages, okay. What? It's huge. So I want to talk about some of the projects. Sorry about that. I want to talk about some of the projects that I'm working on. By no means is a comprehensive picture of all the projects that I'm working on or that I have worked on during my tenure, but it's kind of those few that I selected tell a story on how I got here, and they tell you the nicest story because there is a lot of random projects that I had during my first years that either resulted to one publication or did not result to publications that I kind of kept them out. So this is the structure of my team right now. And I want to just stop a little bit because I want to make sure I acknowledge the important people to me, my students and my collaborators that make my work possible. First of all, I have two great technicians, the one working especially on the communications and planning side that has developed this huge project for onboarding that I love it. It's one of my favorite projects that I have. And also my trial coordinator that basically does all the variety trials. So she's running sometimes 7, 8 trials at one time. It's a lot of work and I can only get this done through them. And this enhances my connection with the agents and with the industry. We also have a lot of things coming out of this variety testing program. New ideas, new demands from the industry, from checkoff, like sorghum checkoff, that they want to think about what are the practices we need to be looking at. Do we need to review seeding rates based on the new genetics that we have in sorghum? Do we need new fertilization practices because our corn has developed so much? So that variety trial feeds into our research seamlessly. And we also have variety evaluation with the breeders, which is the tail end of the breeding program. They send the varieties to me and I can test on farm, under grazing. We have management research, we have systems research, and we have a bunch of other stuff that I just pulled them as alternative system, including one of my new PhDs that's going to work in wildlife that I'm very excited. Yeah, so forage specialist also working with deer. I have students working with the human component, understanding the social behavior and decision-making process. So we can create tools that can facilitate farmers to adopt technology and understand how we can implement those great ideas in their reality. And also that feeds back information to us on how our ideas are adapted to the systems we believe we know. We know in our research setting, but not many times not in a productive setting. And I also have a ton of collaborators, faculty in multiple departments, animal science, soil, entomology, wildlife, vet school, that work together to make this extension and research program go. One of my biggest extension programs is actually not related to forage, it's related to onboarding. When I started, I realized that a lot of our agents came from very, very diverse backgrounds, okay? They came in from narrow backgrounds. They finish a master's or sometimes an undergrad, even a PhD, very focused on one specific aspect of the discipline. Let's just say you were in animal science and your experiences in equine management. So now we need to teach them beef cattle, dairy cattle, sheep, soils, other things. I saw that there was this need for more information to level those agents that are arriving from a narrow background into this job that is very, very broad in terms of nature and expertise and expectations. So how do we do that? So we did some needs assessment that became actually an extension, a peer review publication. So how to publish extension work. We did needs assessment to identify the training need for ag natural resources and in horticultural agents. And what we have today is this huge program, online program, 100% online, new platform for all the new agents, new specialists that want to develop some experience that are looking for more knowledge in other specific areas outside of their expertise. And they can go there from day one in their job, look into the different modules. This involves 12 modules. Each module has a module leader. So we have about 15 module leaders. Some have 2. And I don't remember the number, but it's probably more than 30 faculty across all IFAs involved in developing this project with me. It was super cool. And we also have the onboarding in person. First semester, they come on in a classroom with us, with my team and my colleagues, and we talk about what is to be an extension agent in ag and natural resources. We tell them about the resources in IFAS, how to navigate commodity groups, how to interact with other agents, and much more. It's very, very rewarding. People ask me, you're the forage guy, but how do you know the Seagrain folks? Like, I interact with all of them in the beginning, not forages, but that leads to better forage management at the end. And that's how I phrase it in my mind to convince myself I needed to do this. This actually helps me on the other end when I'm training them in specific forage matters because I'm giving them this wide background. I also like tying my research and extension through our breeding program. So, for example, Dr. Rios, Dr. Blunt before, Dr. Alpeter and Kenworthy with some of the Bahia grass, several of those breeding lines that come out of their programs that they say, okay, this is pretty good. We need to do a little more testing on farm. We need to do testing on with grazing. We need to do herbicide testing. We need to increase seed production. So that comes to me, that comes to Dr. Sollenberger, and we put that in the ground. We try to kill all those plants that they develop. If we cannot kill them, we say, okay, this is good for our farmers. It's going to survive our environment and the use. And we got some pretty cool research out of that, new research methods. And here specifically, a very simple project, which entry produces best, which entry is more tolerant. And through the skills that my students acquired, they can give me a much better product that I could do by myself, because they are much more equipped with statistic tools to develop very nice analysis. We have grazing tolerance, we have herbicide tolerance, have seed production. So the same trial now, the same effort here, we have 4 different projects coming out of that. When we're done with this, we're going to release those materials for the farmers for use in Florida, with guidelines on how they can use, with seed production guidelines, with grazing management guidelines. From this effort in variety trial, I also went to the official variety trial, which is the official testing for forages in Florida. Work with the industries and also with the commodity groups like the cattlemen and the dairymen with the milk checkoff, the beef checkoff, to support some of those programs. We test different varieties that are available commercially. We test our varieties against the commercial varieties. Give this data to the farmers so they can make decisions. It helps them to see what type of corn they're going to plant, which ryegrass they're going to choose for grazing, which oat they're going to use for silage this winter. We update that as a multi-state extension project also, and leads to annual IFAS publications, EDIS publications as we update those documents. We also have a big effort with the breeding team to not only test those, but also make available some of the materials that are propagated using vegetative material, like limpo grass and Bermuda grass. We take those on farm, we help farmers to establish, we test with herbicides, we develop nurseries, we help them expanding. So this now, through those projects, this is actually financed by USDA through Dr. Rios. Now we have nurseries across multiple counties and of released materials or soon to be released materials. So whenever they are released, we can distribute plant material to farmers and cover more area. So it's very rewarding to do that when they say like, hey, that Bermuda grass you planted here is December and it's still green. I'm crazy about it. It's fantastic. Like, that's impact. That's a victory for us. That's a victory for the breeding team. We also, through those variety testing, come other opportunities with the industry, because they have also, a lot of the industry nowadays have limited research capacity. So they contract with us through faculties, service programs, and other type of research. And we do those variety testing. Sometimes we take just an extra step on the simple variety testing to look into fertilization, to look into seeding rates and generate other publications. We take that into the silage. There was some projects with Dr. Ferreira from Animal Science that left, and now with Dr. Vias, my colleague in Animal Science, and we work very close together. So we take those simple trials, we take an extra step and generate very cool information that is useful for our farmers. And one of the things that I want to mention in terms of getting this publication and strategies, this for the young faculty that are starting, one thing that I didn't do was a very good plan in the first year. I think we need to really start publishing as soon as possible. Putting the, especially people that are working in agricultural systems with field research, that is going to take a couple of years before you can get data, another year before you can publish anything. As soon as you get the job, put down some trials, make sure it's a good solid trial, get it going, so you have a publication year 2, year 3. Rely on good students, find good collaborators, and explore existing data sets. Those are other things that I did, and I wish I had done even more, because that can help you in this beginning of the career where you're not yet self-sufficient, especially the data sets in the collaborators. And don't do systems research. They take forever. I had this, my second master student had this fantastic project for her with pollinators. Was an establishment phase of a system project. Of course, it's not going to work. She was a champion because she went through that project. It was hard. We knew we're not going to get a lot out of that. We went through, we got it done. We're fixing to get that published. It was a lot of work. Lesson learned, don't do a systems research with a master student in the beginning of the career, because it's going to fail. And also there is outlets for extension activities. This is a needs assessment that one of my colleagues in animal science did with her PhD student. It's a simple publication, yes, it's very valid, because actually this information here helps me justify my work with equine clients. Because from this publication now on my packet, I can say, based on the data we collected, this information is important. This program is important, so I'm justifying that. And then I can come back and measure the impact of my extension programs in the future. Plan on how you're going to collect the data and think about if that data is publishable. Let me go on the complete reverse of this. In the beginning, I thought that I could publish a lot of my extension work, and I did a lot of on-farm trials, and I tried to publish. I tried to get data. It was so hard to get good on-farm data. Probably half of those failed. The other half had so much variation that we didn't even know what to do. So be careful when going with those on-farm trials. And one last thing in terms of publications and research, invest in your students and in productive collaboration. Emphasis on the productive collaboration. There's some lovely colleagues that we can work with that have your best interest in mind, and they're going to really help advance your program forward. With an extension appointment as high as mine, sometimes it's hard to do the research I really want to do, to be meaningful and to be a recognized researcher. But we can provide opportunity for the students to improve their knowledge, to gain new skills, to bring new ideas to your group that can really advance that other side. And I have some excellent students and excellent collaborators that can keep me engaged with top-tier research, even if most of my actual program research is much more on the applied side. One thing I love to brag about, what's my expertise, and I say it's systems research. And it's systems research because at some point I was doing so many things that they did not fit in one packet, and I was trying to package that for my packet. There was no way to fit that into 5 or leave alone 3 extension program areas or research areas. So I just said, oh, it's systems research. But actually, I really like that, because coming from a farming background, growing up in commercial agriculture, I have a different perspective than many of our colleagues that are more related to the research. And I feel my contribution to that is to be able to be the boots on the ground person that understands, that connect with the farmers in their language, in their reality, and we can transform those realities through the research we're doing, not just have those numbers out there for people to use whenever they need. Different approach, different philosophy here. Okay, I want to talk about 2 things that did not fit into this presentation, but people ask me. How I got the money and what I was frustrated about. Okay, very quickly on that, in terms of money. When I give my seminar presentation when I was interviewing at UF, I said, I'm going to apply for this big grant, for NSF grant, for big USDA grant. Well, reality hit, and with a huge extension appointment, you're not going to get some of those big grants, especially not right off the bat. Unless you have some good collaboration, you might be much better than me. So that's great. I'm happy for that. But it's hard to do that. So I shift my focus for commodity groups, smaller grants, internal support for both students and work, and also for local agencies like FDACS. I had two great grants from FDACS that help kickstart my extension program. Okay, about things that there are the most frustrating challenges. one thing that we don't know about when we start, so we have 70% extension, 30% research, right? Okay, what about the administrative burden or load? I don't want to say burden, because that's not accounted on, right? We don't know that. We have zero experience. We have never managed a big grant, never managed a team, and you have to figure that out. That's why it's so important to have a good support team at the department or the shared services level to keep you going. I still complain about the excessive accountability we have because we have that, we implement so many processes that end up making everything difficult. And then what we try to do, how can I avoid this? How can I, and then we start getting problems, and then it generates even more problem, and generates more workload, and generates one more process to avoid that, and generates another rule in this funding that you cannot use for that. Okay, this is extremely frustrating. The other thing is that we had 5 department chairs in 7 years. I had a fantastic mentoring committee, and that's what kept me on track. For those that may not have had a great mentoring committee, they would probably struggle a lot more on that. Things that frequently change institutionally. First of all, they tell you to build your brand, and then they say, no, you cannot use this brand anymore. Okay. Get this type of fund. No, but now you cannot use this type of fund. We're going to put another charge over it. We say, okay, come on, really? I'm trying to play the game here. And let's use this system because it's better. So everybody has to change. But don't worry, in a few years, they're going to change again. Good. The thing that bothers me the most is lack of passion. And whenever I encounter lack of passion, and for those that work with me in different levels, they know me, caring goes a long way. Caring for the people, caring for the processes, caring for the institution, for the mission. And when I see that lacking, it's extremely frustrating for me. That's probably a personal thing. That's probably not a general thing, but that's who I am. That's where my passion lies. And that's how I want to do my job. Last thing I want to talk is about the importance of the team. Your students, your staff, your collaborators, your department support staff, the essential services that are being provided to us. Without those, I wouldn't be here. Nobody would be here. We frequently undervalue the importance of those services. We don't care about those. We complain about those. We need to learn how to recognize. There are issues, yes, many, but without them, we don't move forward. I have today 4 PhD students, including co-advised, that I work directly, 3 master's students, and normally I have 1 to 3 interns. So it's probably a much bigger team that you would expect with a 30% research appointment. I have 2 technicians that move a good chunk of my extension appointment. And I have many collaborators, as I mentioned multiple times, that make this thing possible. Where's the balance between that research and extension? Well, I'm still looking for it. The crude truth is, and to wrap up here, the crude truth is that the research is going to give you tenure. There are many opportunities to merge research and extension, as I showed. There is many more opportunities for you to get lost in the weeds and not in just lose perspective, which I did in the first few years. It was very hard to see what really is going to matter at the end. It's important to have a plan and a vision for a career, especially in the first few years that can turn into publications and actions. And make sure you're generating impact and measuring the impact, generating the impact for your community. Collaborate with experienced colleagues who can help your research program and that can help you build your own identity. One of my problems in quotes in the beginning was that I had too many collaborations, not a lot of identity with my team. So I had to build that. But those collaborations were what kept me moving and afloat. And about teamwork, I'm here because of my team and of my colleagues. Extension transcend areas, it has to be that way. It needs to be a multidisciplinary approach. There is no space for extension with just one view because there's just too many things out there for us to consider. We need a systems perspective. There are several opportunities to collaborate and engage. And also, again, as I mentioned, sorry for the duplicate, it's important to to build your name, build your reputation, build your own program and your identity. At the same time, we are advancing the mission of the institution, the mission of the department, and of our group in general. And that's all. I appreciate the attention. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was a little bit inspiring, and I'd love to discuss this further. Whoops. I was just going to put our social media stuff there, of course. For those that love podcasts, we have 2 podcasts going on also, by the way.
So one of the streams that I saw go through the entire presentation is your ability to adapt and change. Is there something that you are doing research on or educating on that you never expected to be part of your expert portfolio?
Oh, yeah, a lot. I think especially in my first few years, a lot of what is second to third phase, first to second phase, second, third, fourth year, a lot of what I was doing is chasing the money. So I never expected to work with pollinators. Wildlife, I always liked wildlife. I had a feral hog project before coming here. So when there was that opportunity, I loved it. Never thought about working with pollinators. Never thought about working with mycotoxins in the beginning. So in an extension, a lot of the times you're working on what your clients need, on the demands from them. So that's going to determine your focus of work. And I think adaptation in many ways is essential for our careers, because adaptation to funding cycle, adaptation to different challenges within the institution, like different chairs, different roles, new students, mentoring, personalities. I love to see where I'm wrong, because by doing that, I can evolve. So I'm frequently analyzing and adapting. My team knows that pretty much every year I'm going to change the style we communicate. Our lab meetings are going to change. We're going to change some of the requirements. The vision is the same. The values is the same, but we're adapting to see how we're going to work best with that set of cards we have in our hands at a time.
Marcelo, good job. What is the future of extension, especially in IFAS? How do you see, new assistant professors that are just joining, the department and maybe other departments, and how they can, what are the things that they should be focusing, for the next 3 or 4 years in terms of extension?
That's a pretty intense question. So the future of extension, I think if we don't reinvent ourselves, we're going to be more and more irrelevant. Back in the early 2010s, I don't remember where it was, when was a specific article that said, is extension still relevant in the 21st century? We have a lot of competing avenues for information. We have a lot of other interests out there. So not only avenues, but also interests in the sense of commercial interests. And now that, where do we stand? We are the unbiased source of information. We're here to help the public. We're here to serve without interest, commercial interests or anything. If we keep that mindset, I think we still have a future, and we can be that provider of the service, a free service for the public. I'm talking about extension with the public. I'm not talking extension of that sometimes we see in the department, right? But that comes back to the department on how we do, how we act, and what we're doing. I think what I've seen over the past few years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay or others, there is a decreasing FTE in extension in many of the departments, and decreasing interest in funding extension, because the funding system has changed a lot. And now we're required to get funds for our salaries. Now we have to, beyond what we already had to do in terms of research. So all of a sudden, how is an extension specialist going to survive in a 9-month world when many times you get a grant that's $20,000, $30,000? So we need to review some of that. But I'm biased. I don't think extension is going to ever be irrelevant, but it's how we sell us and what we're doing in extension. We may need to rethink about the traditional methods. I had I had some experience throughout these 7 years with different approaches to deliver information to farmers, to train extension agents. There's a lot of opportunities out there that we can reinvent ourselves to keep being relevant. In terms of what I would, for the new extension agents, for the new faculty, state faculty with extension appointment, you got to play the game. I think extension is going to be extremely important, but if you focus on extension like I did in the beginning, you're going to spin wheels for the first couple of years until you get traction. So establishing a strong research program and doing our extension activities is important. Okay. By the way, some people think doing one field day a year is an extension program or writing an EDIS pub. That's not an extension, not the definition of an extension.
Marcelo, that was a really great talk, and I really appreciate the way you have married extension and research together. I was interested in your statement about your third year tenure review, and I couldn't quite tell if it helped you or if it just stressed you out. And so could you just speak a little bit on
Sure.
how useful that was, and if there were ways in which that third year review process could be improved?
Okay, so I think the third year review was a very good wake up moment to see where I was going, especially with the first 2 years with a weak track towards tenure. And my committee had been telling me that. I'm somewhat stubborn, even though I like change, and I'm still stubborn. So I'm going to do this extension because it's important. And I kept on doing that. What happened was I just added a lot more load. I just went ahead and added a lot. I had to strategize on how to add all those other components, which end up, again, overloading. The most frustrating part for me when I received the letter was that when I was hired and when we're talking about the parameters, the criteria for assistant to associate, associate to full, some of the associate to full were now being asked for me to go to tenure, associate editor, international work, and all that. And I said, okay, is the goal moving, or we're working that? And that was very frustrating. Then it came to a point we had a discussion with no committee. How is the future for the new faculty that are starting now, that every year we are increasing that bar more and more? Well, if those guys did this, why those cannot do? Or those girls did this, why they cannot do? So we keep on going to what point? Personality, just my personality, you give me a challenge, I'm going to do it, even if it is at a personal cost, which happened to be. So I think it was both. It helped me a lot to gauge. It frustrated me a lot to see that it felt like it was never enough. Problem is, as Dr. Solenberger said, nobody cares what I think. This is what you got to do. You got to keep on going. If you want to go through that process without worrying, you got to do this. And I'm actually very glad for those words, because it really made it much easier. Whenever I deliver my packet last year, I switch modes. Nothing else to worry about. There's nothing else I can do. I have a question on Zoom here from Enlo. How do you keep your head up when the bureaucracy start grinding you down? I write to myself. I write it down. I like a journal, so I write that down and I get pretty upset. And then I talk to my wife, she's an extension agent and director. So we kind of sort that out. What's the best way to do? Because complaining is not going to change. And frequently I would send someone a respectful email with my concerns about this bureaucracy. Most times it doesn't result in anything. Sometimes it's actually interesting because they have the chance to explain what was going on, and I didn't perceive that, I didn't see that. And now I have another, okay, I was missing this piece of information. So this is what happened. Okay, how can we work this out? How can we find strategies to avoid this problem in the future? I find that it's much better to do that than just complain. Not to use another word. Chris.
So Marcelo, on the extension side, if you take a look at like the forage producers in the state, how much do you think they're getting information from us versus private consultants, companies? Because I see a lot, like particularly on the carbon side with carbon markets and all that
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
which we could spend a long time talking about, but there's a ton of people kind of coming in to
I think it really
play that role.
really depends on what the topic is and what the clientele is. Apologize for picking on one group of clients, equine lovers. It really doesn't matter what I say. The blog that someone wrote many times is over. We had this discussion with 3 specialists and 1 producer, and this producer kept telling us that we're wrong. I mean, so the information is coming from elsewhere. There's not much I can do. With the dairy folks, they have my personal phone number. They call me frequently to say, hey, what corn are you going to plant? What's the sitting rate here? What should I do here? So it really depends on the clientele. I think on the beef cattle production side, it's so many people, it's so broad that you have all the range. I think the bigger ranches, many times they do have their own consulting, but they rely on extension for us to be that unbiased source. But we're not providing all the knowledge. The beginner folks many times come to us when they find out about extension. They're so excited. They come to us and they apply a lot of the information we do. I don't have a percentage wise. I think in Florida in general, we have 23 million contacts per year with people, client contacts. But that is everything. Okay, it's not only as with the producers. I don't want to risk to say what's the percentage we're reaching. It really depends by which commodity we're talking about. One more question.
Hey, Marcelo, you mentioned variety trials. So I was wondering, how do you prioritize those varieties that you enter into your trials?
So variety trials, the ones I do with the industry, it's industry based. So they tell me that I open registration. They tell me what they want to put based on what they're selling in the state normally, or what they want to sell in the state that they're testing. And then I always include some from our breeders. Of course not. Sebon has, for example, 4 ryegrasses that are advanced lines that he's going to put on our trials. The cool thing about the forage specialist doing the variety trial instead of a breeder, because we take that where I'm not favoring anyone. Yes, you have varieties, not favoring anyone. I'm putting all those here, and we're going to test everything equally. Then the other projects that I mentioned in terms of variety of material assessment, material testing, not cultivars, but materials, those are only internal, unless a company asks me to do a private trial for it. Well, folks, appreciate. I'd love to have more feedback here or afterwards if you have any thoughts. I love sharing all of this because I hope to inspire some people, tell my mess ups. Hopefully somebody is going to avoid doing that, and also create this sheriff community in shared vision of our extension and the work we've been doing. Thank you.
Well, Marcelo, thank you for sharing that with us. You talked about things that you hope people don't do that you did. But if you really think about the things that he told us, there's a lot of things that he did that are really important and monumental. He brought a lot of good people around him. He listened to those people. He asked good questions, and he worked really, really hard, and he kept his eye on the prize. So if you're looking at how to do it right, those are the things that you do right. So everybody, thank you for coming.